Our blankets then.
Okay, we need to get started. This is a big chapter. Is everybody doing okay? Good. All right, appreciate you guys. Appreciate you being here. What was that? Always trying to stay Bible focused. I'm a really big believer that the answer to all these problems, the world's problems, is the Word. Jesus is the answer. I used to sing a song with a band called Rock Haven, Jesus is the Answer. And man, I didn't know at the time, but every time I think about the problems that are going on in this world, He's the answer every single time. So I'm just really big on the Word, and it's good to get started again. We're in Genesis chapter 31. I call this Run, Jacob, Run. Okay? One time in Bible college, when I was first there, I was young, and there was this girl. She was a little bit older student, and I can't remember her name. But anyways, she goes, "Hey, would you like to come to my..." They had like these apartments on campus. I don't know how she got it. It was like a little one room with a little kitchen, and she goes, "You want to come to my bungalow," or whatever they called it. I can't remember. And for coffee. And I said, "Yeah, okay, I'll do that." And so after registration, everything was done. That evening, I went there for coffee, and she had in mind a little bit more than coffee. And I was like, "Oh, I gotta go."
She had coffee and dessert.
Run! I ran. My first day in college, I'm tempted already, so I ran out of there, and that was it.
That was sad.
She ended up getting, of course, kicked out because some other guy.
She got pregnant, right?
Yeah. But anyways, run, Jacob, run. So I just say,
you almost did that when you married me.
I did. Just on the wedding day. Before that, I was all good. I don't know what happened that day. All right. So Jacob's gonna run. But first, let's do a little bit of a review. In Genesis chapter 30, we saw how Jacob prospered and how he was he worked 7 years for Leah, he worked 7 years for Rachel, and then he worked another 6 years for the flocks and things that he had, and God prospered him greatly. And we ended in Genesis 30:41. It says, "It come to pass, whenever the stronger livestock conceived, Jacob placed the rods before the eyes of the livestock in the gutters, that they might conceive among the rods. But when the flocks were feeble, he did not put them in. So the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger were Jacob's. Thus the man became exceedingly prosperous, and had large flocks, female and male servants, and camels and donkeys." So Jacob became rich working for Laban. And we're gonna see what happened during this time in this next chapter. But the thing that I want you to see is that Laban's flocks were feeble, but Jacob's were strong and vibrant. And that's the way we are as a church. Through the Spirit, we are strong and vibrant. And we need to keep this in mind, because Jacob is really a picture of the church. Rachel is a picture of the church too, but we see a picture of God's blessing on this person. Laban is kind of a picture of the carnal church, the one who... Laban was always motivated by what he saw and what he could make. And I don't know if you remember, but when the servant of Abraham came to get Isaac a wife, Laban was around, and when Laban saw all of the wealth, then Laban was glad to help him out. But anyway, we're going to move on, and we're going to go to chapter 31. Run, Jacob, run. Now, 31 verse 1. Now Jacob heard the words of Laban's son, saying, "Jacob has taken away all that was our father's, and from what was our father's he has acquired all this wealth." So it was Laban's sons who were griping. And you notice that the daughters, they didn't get anything. It was the sons who get all of the inheritance. And when the sons saw that Jacob was getting all the vibrant livestock and everything, the sons were griping. Hey, he's taking our inheritance. Everything's going to him, and all we have left is these feeble sheep, these feeble goats. So Laban's kind of a picture of the carnal church. Jacob is a picture of the true church. And you remember that Jacob was the younger, and we're the younger. The old covenant is a picture of the older son, and the new covenant is a picture of the younger son. And the older shall serve the younger. So Jacob cherished his birthright, and now you can see the blessing coming to pass. And remember how Esau, his brother, rejected the birthright, and Jacob got it? We need to cherish our birthright, which is the family of God. So we have the stronger, we have the more prosperity. We actually take from the weaker. They're weak, we're strong. And they like to make you think it's the other way around, that they're the ones in control. But because we have the Spirit in us, we're the ones who are the stronger. Verse 2, Jacob saw that the countenance of Laban, Jacob saw the countenance of Laban, and indeed it was not favorable towards him as before. Before, Laban was pretty happy. He was increasing, things were growing, things were happening. Now he's not so happy. And the Lord said to Jacob, return to the land of your fathers and to your family, and I will be with you. So we need to stay with our family. We need to hang around people of the Spirit. We don't need to be around carnal Christians. We
don't need to necessarily be around our family.
Yeah, that too. We need to be bound by the Spirit, not by blood. Right? Our birthright is with the family of God. So we need to cherish our birthright, which is the Spirit of God. Verse 4, so Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field, to his flock, and said to them, I see your father's countenance, and it's not favorable towards me as before, but the God of my father has been with me. And you know that with all my might I have served your father. Jacob was a good servant. Yet your father has deceived me and changed my wages 10 times, but God did not allow him to harm me. So over those 6 years, his wages were changed 10 times. Every time that the sheep would bear spotted, he would change it. You get the striped sheep. Every time that they bear stripes, you get the spotted sheep. So he kept changing it. But every time he changed it, it didn't matter. Jacob still prospered. So, and it's interesting, the number 10. 10 is what? The number of?
The law.
Law. It's going to be this way. No, it's going to be this way. No, it's going to be this way. It was changed 10 times. So it's a picture of the law. It's a picture of him living under the law, but prospering. So Jacob was faithful. Laban only liked him when it benefited him. See, Laban was only happy when he was gaining. He wasn't happy to see his daughters gaining or Jacob gaining. He was only happy when he was gaining. Laban didn't care about Jacob or his daughters. It was the sons complaining because their father's wealth was theirs. That's why the daughters didn't complain, because they're getting it. Isn't that funny how the daughters got it and the sons didn't? They got that wealth. So, if he said, thus the speckled shall be your wages, then all the flocks were speckled. And if he said, thus the streak shall be your wages, then all the flocks bore streak. So God has taken away the livestock of your father and given them to me. So it's God who prospered Jacob. Anyway, bottom line is Jacob's prospering and his daughters are prospering. The sons are griping and Laban's countenance has fallen. So it's God who caused Laban to decrease, and it was God who caused Jacob to increase. And that's what he does for us. We increase through the Spirit. We have the victory through the Spirit. We have the increase. We don't have the decrease. They get the decrease. We get the increase. So, verse 10. And it happened at the time when flocks conceived that I lifted my eyes and saw in a dream. Now, Jacob saw this in a dream. And behold, the rams which leaped upon the flocks were streaked, speckled, and gray spotted. And then the angel of God spoke to me in a dream, saying, Jacob. And I said, here I am. And he said, lift your eyes now and see all the rams which leap on the flocks are streaked. Does everybody know what leaped on means? That's procreation anyway. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but I lived on a farm and that's what happened. So they leapt on the flocks are streaked, speckled, and gray spotted. For I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. I'm the God of Bethel. Means house of God. Remember, Bet means house. Bethlehem is house of bread. Bethel, El is another name for God. House of God. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed the pillar and where you made a vow to me. Now arise and get out of this land and return to your land, to your family. So God's telling Jacob, time to go. Time to go. Sometimes you'll feel a restlessness in your soul. And you need to listen to that sometimes. Sometimes it's God moving you to the next level. Just something there. So God's inheritance are the spotted and the speckled. You'll notice that the prosperity came from the sheep that were rejected. The spotted sheep and the speckled sheep and are sheep that you really couldn't use as a sacrifice. It had to be a pure sheep. It couldn't have a blemish. Mm-hmm. It couldn't have a spot. And you'll notice that God's inheritance, that's what we are. We're all messed up. We're all spotted. We're all speckled. And yet we're His prosperity. We're His great reward. We're His inheritance. So I thought that's pretty cool that Jacob gets all the spotted, speckled, whatever that Laban didn't want, that's what Jacob got, and look what happened. He prospered. God gives vision to those who trust in Him, and Jacob is told to go back to his family. We need to stay with our family. Verse 14, then Rachel answered and said to him, is there still any portion, our inheritance, for us in our father's house? In other words, Dad doesn't have anything anymore. We've got it. And let me tell you something. Laban wasn't going to give him anything anyway. They would have been empty-handed. Laban, the daughters usually never got an inheritance. It was always the sons. Are we not considered strangers by him? For he has sold us and also completely consumed our money. For all these riches which God has taken from our father are really ours and our children's. Now then, whatever God has said to you, do it. So they recognize they are being prospered by God, and that Laban wouldn't have given them anything. So usually the male is the heir. The girls end up with the father's riches, not the sons. And they're blessed because of Jacob, and they're obedient because of Jacob. So that blessing goes out to the whole family. Just like we are blessed because we're of Christ. They're blessed because they're of Jacob. Jacob rose and set his sons and his wives on camels, and he carried away all his livestock and all his possessions which he had gained, his acquired livestock which he had gained in Paddan Aram, to go to his father Isaac in the land of Canaan. So he's returning back to the land of Canaan. So Jacob's going to return to his father and his family, and he brings blessing and riches wherever he goes. He's got servants. Anywhere that Jacob goes, people are going to be blessed. Now, Laban had gone to shear sheep. Oh, he just leaves. Okay. One time I had an apartment, and it was an awesome apartment in Manhattan, Kansas, and I was going to college there, K-State University. And my friend called and goes, hey Joe, can I stay just a couple of days? I need a place to stay till I can find my own. And I said, yeah. And he's staying there. A couple of weeks go by, 3 weeks. And then another friend, can I stay there for just a couple of days? I got kicked out of my apartment. Yeah, okay, come on. So now I got 2 roommates staying there. And then one of their friends says, hey, I need a place to stay. Pretty soon, I've got 3 roommates, and they're eating my food. They're, and I'm paying all the rent, everything. They're supposed to be there temporary, and I keep telling them to leave, and they won't leave. So one day, while they were gone, I moved out. I didn't tell them. I just packed up my stuff and got another place. Yep. And they didn't come and get me till the landlord knocked on the door one day. And they just thought that I had gone home or something, and they got stuck with that last rent. Anyway, so that's what Jacob does here. Just up and leaves. Doesn't tell Laban. So Laban and Jacob. Listen to this. Okay, Laban had gone to shear sheep, and Rachel had stolen the household idols that were from her father's. And Jacob stole away, unknown to Laban the Syrian, in that he did not tell him that he intended to flee. So he fled with all that he had. He arose and crossed the river and headed towards the mountains of Gilead. So Jacob takes off, and what does Rachel do? She steals all the blessings that God had given them, and she takes something that's worthless. The household gods. They're worthless. And all they do is represent sin. But she has to take them, even though she's got everything that the sons didn't get.
And Jacob's love too.
Yeah, and Jacob loves her, and she steals those household. So Rachel takes what has no value. Cherish what God gives and no more. God has given us blessings, and we don't need to cherish anything other than what God gives us. So anyways, Jacob deceives his father-in-law. That's fits his name. And we move to verse 22. And Laban was told on the third day that Jacob had fled. Then he took his... Notice it's the third day. Do you see? And Jesus rose on the third day. But anyways, it's revealed that Jacob is gone. He took Laban took his brethren with him and pursued him for 7 days. And for a 7 days journey, and he overtook him in the mountains of Gilead. But God came to Laban the Syrian in a dream by night and said, "Be careful that you speak to Jacob neither good nor bad." Okay. First of all, I find that interesting because Laban could speak to Jacob and say something like, "Look, if you'll come back, I'll do this and this and this." That's good, right? Or he could say, "I'm going to kill you because you just took everything that I had, and that would be bad." So God said, don't say anything to him, good or bad. In other words, what he's saying is, don't deceive Jacob. Don't let him go. He's going back home. Don't try to coerce him either with potential or with fear. And so God's protecting Jacob. So Laban finds out on the third day. Jesus rose on the third day. Jacob already had the victory. Jacob had the victory. He wins. And God's protecting him. Laban could not touch him. So Laban overtook Jacob, and Jacob had pitched his tent in the mountains, and Laban with his brethren pitched in the mountains of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, "What have you done that you have stolen away unknown to me?" In other words, why'd you leave without telling me? "And carried my daughters like captives with the sword." He just took my daughters. He didn't care about those daughters. But here he's trying to say, look, you hurt my feelings. You took my daughters. Why did you flee away secretly? He didn't even realize it for 3 days that they were gone. Why did you flee away secretly? Now we have to remind people to look in the back seat to make sure their kids are back there. But here there's 3 days have gone. Okay. Why did you flee away secretly and steal away from me and not tell me? For I might have sent you away with joy and song. I wanted to have a celebration. You didn't tell me. With joy and songs, with timbrel and harp. Yeah.
I might not have.
And you did not allow me to kiss my sons and my daughters. Now you have done foolishly in so doing. But what Laban was really concerned about was money. He's really not concerned about his kids, his grandkids, his daughters. He's only concerned about himself. So verse 29 says, "It's in my power to do you harm." Okay, now you're here. See, Jacob just got done saying, "I wanted to have a celebration. I wanted to have joy and a timbrel and harp." But now he goes, "But I could kill you." But God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, "Be careful that you speak to Jacob neither good nor bad." So now you have surely gone because you greatly long for your father's house. But why did you steal my gods? Okay, so the only thing that Laban can lay claim on Jacob got everything fair and square. The only thing that he could lay claim is, you stole my gods. You stole the household idols. So Laban was not permitted to harm Jacob. He was not permitted even to deceive him with good or hurt him with harm. Laban was not permitted to take back anything, and Laban, the only legitimate claim he has is, you took my household gods. Now this gets pretty cool. So Jacob answered and said to Laban, because I was afraid, for I said, perhaps you would take your daughters from me by force. Rightly, Jacob was afraid, because Laban would have probably done that. With whomever you find your gods, now listen to this. With whomever you find your gods, do not let them live. He just condemned Rachel to death. Because when they spoke, that was it. There was no getting around it. They would die. In the presence of our brethren, identify what I have of yours and take it with you, for Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. This is the law. The law is exacting, and she would die if he finds those household gods. So that's a picture of the law. The law condemns us to death. And if we are found wanting, we're dead. But there's something that covers us. Jacob condemns Rachel with his words, and just as the law condemns us. Rachel is guilty. She, right here, should have to die. Okay, verse 33. Laban went into Jacob's tent, and into Leah's tent, and into the two maids' tents, but he did not find them. And then he went out of Leah's tent and entered Rachel's tent. Now, Rachel had taken the household idols and put them in the camel's saddle and sat on them. And Laban searched all about the tent, but did not find them. And she said to her father, let it not displease my lord, that I cannot rise before you, for the manner of woman is with me. Does everybody know what the manner of woman is?
Us girls know.
Okay. The manner of woman is with me. And he searched, but he did not find the household gods. Let me tell you something. This is a picture of the blood covering our sin. This is because she is not going to be found out. And it was because of the manner of woman that saved her. A picture of the blood that covers our sin. Rachel is not found guilty. God has protected Rachel, just like he protects us. Though we deserve death, the blood of Jesus Christ has covered us, and we are no longer guilty. Is that not cool? That's awesome. Jacob was angry. Now Jacob gets mad. Now I don't blame him. And he rebuked Laban, and Jacob answered and said to him, what is my trespass? What is my sin, that you have so hotly pursued me? We can say that to the enemy. What is my sin? There is no sin, there is no trespass, because I'm under the blood of Jesus Christ, and therefore you cannot come against me. You have nothing on me. Although you have searched all my things, what part of your household things have you found? Do you know that the enemy is going to try and say you've done things, but there's nothing that he can pin on you, because we're covered by the blood? Set it here before my brethren and your brethren, and then judge between us both. There's no judgment, because that sin is not found. So therefore there's no judgment. No sin is set before Jacob. Jacob is not judged. Just like us, because Christ took our judgment. We're not judged. How cool is that? Our judgment is for rewards, not for death. Remember, Rachel's supposed to die. She's talking about the judgment of death, but she's not going to be judged to die. She actually bears Joseph and Benjamin later on. So, these 20 years I've been with you. Your ewes, your female goats have not miscarried their young, and I have not eaten the rams of your flock. That which was torn by beasts I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it. You required it from my hand, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. There I was in the day. The drought consumed me, and the frost by night. My sleep departed from my eyes. Thus I have been in your house 20 years. I've served you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flock, and you have changed my wages 10 times. Here it is again. Law. Unless the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been with me, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. He would have been, had it not been for God, he would have been empty-handed, same as us. We're empty-handed if it's not for God. God has seen my affliction and the labor of my hands, and rebuked you last night. So, Jacob is rich with family and wealth. He's got everything because God has blessed him. And he rebukes Laban here. So, Laban can't put any charge against Jacob. There's nothing to be found. No sin to be found. Everything he has, he got from God and is his, rightly. So verse 43. Laban answered and said to Jacob, these daughters are my daughters, and these children are my... Now, see how Laban thinks? Those are my daughters. That's
a narcissist for you.
Those are my children.
That's how narcissists think.
Right? And this flock is my flock.
Right.
That's all mine that you have. It's not. Jacob earned it. Fair and square. He worked 7 years for one daughter, 7 years for the other, and then he worked 6 years and took all the rejected sheep and all goats. All that you see is mine. This is what Laban is saying. But what can I do this day to these my daughters or to their children whom they have borne? What can I do? They were mine, but now they're yours. And that we have the inheritance. And there's nothing that the enemy can do to take it from us. Now therefore, come, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be a witness between you and me. So now he wants to make a covenant to make sure he doesn't get anything else. So Laban's lost his daughters, much of his wealth, and God protects his covenant people and prospers him. And that's what he does for us. So verse 45, Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. And then Jacob said to his brethren, gather stones. And they took the stones and made a heap. And they ate there at the heap. And Laban called it Jegar Sahadatha, but Jacob called it Galeed. Both names mean heap or pile of testimony. They both mean the same thing. However, they mean a heap of testimony, but Jegar Sahadatha is more the testimony of men, whereas Galeed is a testimony of God. You see how Jacob said, this is mine, this was mine, this was mine. So his is more of a testimony that all this was mine, now I'm putting a boundary here, and you take it, but don't ever come back. That's what that boundary is. You don't cross this boundary over to me, and I won't cross the boundary over to you. But Jacob saw it as a testimony to God. And Laban said, verse 48, Laban said, this heap is a witness between you and me this day. Therefore, its name was called Galeed, also Mizpah, because he said, may the Lord watch between you and me when we are absent from one another. If you afflict my daughters, or if you take other wives besides my daughters, although no man is with us, see, God is witness between you and me. God knows that they made a covenant right there. And God's the one who's watching over. And they're not to touch each other's stuff. Which is good. We shouldn't be after what the world has. And the world can't touch what we have. Even though we inherit everything that was... the wealth of the wicked is laid up for the righteous. That's our inheritance.
And sometimes God takes us from abusive families. Like he was being abused.
Right.
And starts, like with us, a whole new generation of kids that will never be abused.
Yeah.
Gives us a brand new family.
Yeah.
Kind of like, we started over, but we had God with us, and
yeah.
He blessed us. And sometimes you have to leave the Looney Tunes. And
you do. You got to leave those Looney Tunes behind. Okay, verse 51, we're almost done. Laban said to Jacob, here's this heap and here's this pillar which I have placed between you and me. This heap is a witness, and this pillar is a witness that I will not pass beyond this heap to you, and you will not pass beyond this heap and this pillar to me for harm. The God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, and the God of their fathers judged between us, and Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. So, once the covenant was made, it's binding. And even now that this covenant is done, even if they find the idols that Rachel hid, Laban can't come over and harm her. Because the covenant's been made. Neither can harm the other. Jacob offered a sacrifice on the mountain and called his brethren to eat bread. And they ate bread and stayed all night on the mountain. And early in the morning Laban arose, kissed his sons and daughters, blessed them, and then Jacob departed and returned to his place. So, God is our director. He tells us where we need to go, what we need to do. God is our protector. Just like he told Laban, no, speak neither harm nor good. Leave him alone. All that stuff is his. God's our protector. God is our covering. Just like those idols were covered over, that sin, God covers us. And God is our testimony. Just like they made the heap, that was a testimony between them two. You can't come over and touch us, and we're not going to go over and touch you. And there's chapter 31. Run, Jacob, run. He ran away.
Very good.
Nice, right? Yeah.
Very interesting.
Love that Old Testament. It's just such a testimony to the power of Jesus Christ. And it's just a beautiful picture of who Jesus is. That whole Bible is like that. So, anyway, there we go, right?